Okay, the class that we're going to deal with today and the teaching that we're going to deal with today is a very beautiful teaching, which I think contextualizes where we place our focus in life, what we engage with within our experience of life, and where wealth and a person's finance and a person's engagement with those aspects of life sometimes take a priority in terms of their focus. Rabbi Nachman is going to give us a very simple analogy or a simple observation, which I think will be able to very much integrate into our experience of life. And I think what we could call this is, a calibration where, you take your wheels, your tires of your car to be aligned. And, so you stop veering to the left or to the right because you might have hit a pothole or whatever it may be. Same too, this teaching is very much sort of a wheel alignment in terms of our direction, okay? So let's have a look together. So Rabbi Nachman taught the following. Amar, kol mi sheyesh lo kavod ve'ashirus yoiser hakavod rachok mimenu ve'yoiser. He says, anyone that has honor or wealth, the more honor and wealth they have, the greater it is of distance from them. Okay? Yoiser hakavod rachok mimenu. It becomes more distant. He's going to explain what that means. And really how we're going to engage with this is the concept of mindfulness. Okay? Every single individual in life wants to experience life in the best way possible. We all want to be able to sit there with our experiences of if it's drinking a coffee, or if it's playing with our children, or if it's speaking to our spouse, or if it's just going for a walk. We all want to have presence. We all want to remove worry and anxiety. We all want to experience the beauty of life in a greater capacity. So the deduction that a person thinks is the greater their wealth and the greater the honor and accolades that they have in life, the easier it will be for them to have mindfulness, the easier it will be for them to be present in life. So Rabbi Nachman says it's the opposite, okay? Not to say, and we're going to have to contextualize this before we start, because might get a few people's joints out of whack, but it's not to say that a person's not allowed to have wealth, and it's not to say that a person shouldn't strive to have wealth and engage with experiences of honor. It's not to say that, but we're going to talk about our direction. What is our focal point in life? Is wealth an equation to equal mindfulness? Is honor plus wealth something that equals presence and the true experience of life? Let's have a look. So he says, the further a person enhances their amount of wealth and their amount of honor in the world, the greater the distance that they experience between that honor and wealth. He says, when a person has a little bit of money, he says, when you have a couple of coins of cash, a little bit of money, he says, then you're able to keep it in your pocket. Yeah? Keep it next to you in your pocket. Could be your pocket, suit pocket, your jacket pocket in the front, maybe, your right hand pocket in your leg, whatever it may be it in your purse, wherever you are keeping your money, you have it right on you, next to you. Aval. But when a person has a lot of money, now you can't keep it in your pocket. You know when you have to do that draw from the ATM, and you've got so many, Baruch Hashem if you can, but you got so many notes. You can't keep it in your wallet anymore. Yeah, it's too thick of a amount of notes to keep in your wallet. So you can't keep it in your pocket anymore. You now have to keep it in a teva, in an ark, in some form of a container. So now it's a strange thing, no? You've just got more money, but now what's happened to it in terms of its proximity? It's become more distant from you. It's no longer in your pocket, next to your skin, next to your flesh, but it's become a little bit more removed, a little bit more conceptual. So yes, you sit there and they say, money in my bank account, or money in my, he's talking about here, a teva, a little container that you have at home, a little chest. So you've got your money in your chest now. But interesting that the money has become more distant from you. It's now become more conceptual, but it's not actually visceral or tangible. He says, now when you have more, then your wealth is invested in a number of other elements. It sits in a shop, or it could be that it sits in a bank. It's no longer in your home. And then it becomes even more distant. Yeah, you've got your Swiss bank account now, where it's no longer in your own country, but it's much further from you. It's no longer within your immediate experience of where you are. It's not there. It's become so conceptual. Then he finally brings this example. He says, if you get to the apex, okay, he says all of the Tsars, all of the Kesarim, V'Amelachim, and the kings, that have the greatest honor, he says you'll notice that their honor is even more removed from them. That the king, he says, or the Tsar, Yoshev Bevesai, that he sits in his home, Ukan Mizamrim Meshairin, Bekapalia Bishviloi. But in the other villages, that's where they sing his praise. That's where they sing the anthem. Le'es Erev Kanahog. They would have a minig, that they would sing the anthem of the king every evening while he sits in his home. Okay. Kanahog kibi beiske oilam hazeh. Kol ma sheyesh lo la'adam kavod b'yoseh, kavod rachok b'menu b'yoseh. So he says, and this is a fundamental principle which we'll speak out here. The more we have of this world, the more we have in this world, be it through honor, be it through wealth, the further it becomes from us. Okay, and we're going to try and understand what that means. Aval Torah u'masim tovim, but within the spiritual world, kol ma sheyesh le'yoser, the more you have, heim smuchen alav b'yoser, they are closer to you more. Okay. So this is the oscillation, the juxtaposition within the physical world. The more we have, the further it is. Within the spiritual world, the more we have, the closer it is. Okay. So now what does this mean? What does this mean for us? How are we meant to engage with this teaching? Okay. It definitely doesn't mean that, we relinquish all engagement with our finances and making a living and even striving for wealth. But what it does is it means the following. When our identities become focused on the externalities that we possess, the finances that we have, the experiences of grandeur that we somewhat concoct in our minds, the more we have doesn't lead you to feel that you have more. Okay, that's the crazy thing. The more a person has, it's not to say that you actually feel more satiated in life. In fact, the opposite is true. And that's a crazy thing because we can, everyone in their own circumstance, however much a person has, they always want more. As the Torah says that if you have 100, you want 200. If you have 200, you want 400. But what it's saying to us is that more we enhance or experience a greatness within that wealth, the more it becomes a conceptual framework within the mind of identity, the more it usurps our experience of ourselves. And what we need to do is, when a person is blessed with wealth, they have to be very careful. And that can be very much applied to every single person, because every person has blessings of success. Every person has circumstances where they can enhance their experience. What we have to be overly cautious with is not to allow that to usurp our identity, because when it becomes money in the bank account and the externalities that we construct for ourselves in terms of our successes, it starts to slowly remove itself from its proximity to ourselves. It starts to almost escape our mental reality and our consciousness. And the opposite is true. The more a person creates a humility within their experience of what they own, it could be that a person's very wealthy, but they don't identify themselves by that wealth. Then an individual is then able to experience their blessing in a mindful way. So it's almost a catch-22 here. It's a very, very unique teaching where if we hone into the spiritual realm, the whole purpose of spirituality is to bring things closer to you. And the whole purpose of this world is to distance things from you. The physical world creates distance, while the spiritual world brings it closer. And that's really the oscillation in our experience of this world. If you feel, wow, I've got something right in front of me, I've had to get my car repaired. So they've given us a different car. It's much smaller, lower to the ground, smells a little bit, and you can hear things sort of moving around. But you almost feel the visceral experience. You're much closer to the ground. It's almost like you're actually there. I was like, wow, this is an amazing experience. Being right there, I feel it. But as opposed to, how you're driving in this high vehicle, you're almost off the ground. Do you feel it more or less? That's a unique consideration to experience. Where are we going to invest in terms of experience life fully? Again, it's not to say that we shouldn't have wealth or strive for wealth, but it's to say that our identities can't be premised in those experiences of wealth and the expansion of whatever it is that we're focusing on. So let's give that over for some form of discussion here, or questioning or consideration. Let's see what anyone has to say. Any questions about this teaching? Philip, what do you say here? Philip Weinstein.
Morning, Rabbi. I think it makes sense. I mean, not to say that everybody that has achieved wealth or fame or fortune has the description of a element of arrogance, although we know many do. But I think it makes sense to say that the more that one has as a human being, it takes you away from your spirituality, in the sense of maybe the accumulation of that wealth and fame and fortune becomes misconstrued in the individual's mind that they're the doing. They're the reason they got it, when what you're saying is, as we know from your teaching, is that it's not, comes from Hashem. He'll decide which of us will have fame and fortune and wealth and other stuff, and who won't. So it's misconstruing that it's actually Hashem's given that individual their talent to achieve that wealth and that fortune and that fame, but they shouldn't misconstrue that it doesn't come from themselves. It's been given to them, along with the other brachas.
Right.
And I think it makes sense why you're saying, the more one has, it takes one away from the spirituality.
Yes, and not only, Rabbi Nachman saying here, not only from the spirituality, but thank you for that, Philip, but even from my experience of that wealth. It's almost that we think the more we have, the more we can experience it. But we have to be careful that it doesn't become conceptual, that it doesn't become our identity. Otherwise, we can't experience it. It becomes further and further. The more conceptual it becomes, the more a person says, oh, wow, I am, premising my existence and myself on the ownership of what I have or my successes. then it's now a conceptual reality. You've transformed that wealth into an identity, and the identity isn't tangible. The identity is only conceptual, and it's further away from your actual experience of life. What is your identity? Well, it's only one thing. What's right in front of you? What is right in front of you right now? You know, what can you engage with right now? You know, this is a very, very, very important concept that we can get swept away with. You know, the more successful a person becomes, the more careful they have to be. And, you know, the Mishnah says, Mar ben nechosim, mar bedaiga. The more you have, the more you own, the more worried and anxious you become. Now, again, it's not to say that everyone that, you know, is wealthy or has, you know, ownership over a large amount of things is anxious or worried. You know, it could be the opposite. But it's saying, Mar ben nechosim, when you really premise your identity of self on all of that externality of ownership, then it's mar bedaiga, because you've got more to lose. You've got a erosion or potential erosion of one's identity. When a person just has a backpack, you know, there's almost something very freeing and beautiful. You know, when you go for when you go camping, let's say you're going hiking, you know, and you've just got, you know, some water, a bit of food in your backpack and whatever it is, and that's you, you know, as opposed to that whole surrounding of self. You got less to lose and you're much more present within your experience of life. So what we're seeing here is to really unpack our backpacks in terms of our identities. What do we have that really identifies us? Simplify it to the most basic things. What's in your pocket? What's on you? What's your experience of your clothes on you right now? What's right in front of you? What is the opportunity right in front of you to really experience mindfully that sense of life that's there? And let's be careful not to fall into the intoxication of that element of wealth and expansion of wealth, which erroneously makes us think we'll be even more present. You see the opposite takes place. You know, there's actually more animosity and jealousy and dissonance that sometimes can be experienced. The greater a person enhances that externality in life. So again, it's not to say that everyone that has this, as Philip has contextualized, is in a frame of a lack of mindfulness. And it's just saying we have to be careful in our own lives, in whatever capacity of success, never to put that into our backpack of identity, okay? Our identity is just simplified to the most simple experiences. And what we've seen is spirituality is all about bringing it into the forefront. It's all about the immediacy of our experience. What's in our pocket? What's right there? What's the blessing that's right in front of me? That's the whole purpose of that spirituality. So let's ask, Sarah's just said something, and Pauline Lou, thank you so much for that, Pauline. The Garden of Wisdom, yeah, is a very powerful book. Rav Arush, I think, is the author. And yeah. So a question here is that a person with less can also identify with what they have. That's a very, very important statement here as well. We have to also see the other extent of this teaching, you know, where a person can fall into the identity of what's in their backpack. Yeah. We can also become individuals that identify ourselves by what's not in our backpack. Yeah. It becomes a framework of identity as well. And that's a dangerous reality as well. You know, the two extremes of defining ourselves by the concept, the conceptual framework of premising who we are in externalities. But here, Rav Nachman is saying the opposite is true. We need to draw it back to ourselves. We need to draw it into the spiritual world of our immediacy of the experience of self. There is a deeper, deeper framework internally, and we have to be conscious of not being swept away by that identity of the physical. Yeah. So thank you for that, everyone. Any final comments? Gary, Ken, Clive, anyone else? Mark, Derek, Jacques, Shloimi, Philip, Pauline,
Rabbi,
Ron, yeah, Bradley,
there's,
Ara, yeah.
if I could just add this, Rabbi,
Yes.
there's a real estate gentleman in America who's made colossal success out of real estate. So I've listened to some of his talks. And what he does, exactly what you're explaining, he understands that all his wealth and his fortune and his success comes from Hashem. So he does exactly what you described, and he specifically speaks about it. So he gives half of his house away to the community, and every Shabbos there's gatherings there and meals, and he involves all his family that he can in his business, because he said none of it comes from himself. He's just being given the gift to assemble that wealth, and he has to share it.
Yes.
So he does exactly that. He says he knows that it comes from Hashem, and he can't dare let that arrogance go to his head, because he'll lose it.
Yes.
So the more he shares, he said, it's just grown and grown over 40 years.
100%.
Exactly what you're speaking about, yeah.
I remember an analogy I saw once brought by the Nesivos Shalom. You know, he speaks about a king who was very, very much struggling with happiness. He wanted to find that happiness in life. And he asked his advisors to go and seek out who is the happiest person they can find. And they went everywhere trying to examine, surveying who's the happiest person that exists. And they finally found the individual. They found that it was some beggar on the street. Nothing, sitting on the street with nothing, just had a coat, you know. And they said to him, why are you so happy? So he said, I got nothing to lose. I got nothing to lose. I'm just totally present in my experience of life. I'm the happiest person. So they came back to the king with this guy and they said, this is the happiest guy. So the king says, what am I meant to do? Am I meant to get rid of everything, live on the street with a coat? So he said, no. He said, and this is what his advisors told him, when you give everything you have up to Hashem, to say this is all Hashem's, it's not me, it's not mine, it's all Hashem's, everything is Hashem's, then all you're left with is a coat, you know, all you're left with is just that experience right in front of you. When everything is dissolved to the Eibishter, to Hashem, then that's how you can relinquish that identity of everything that we have in front of us, give it over to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And within that capacity, a person is then able to live happily. What do I have to lose? It's all HaKadosh Baruch Hu's. You know, if I gain it, if I lose it, it's all Hashem's, but it's all for Hashem. It's not my identity. So I'm not going to be really affected in that deeper way. So it should be with bracha for everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for all of your inputs. And it's so nice to see you all with us, especially from Australia. Shlomi Ben Zion, Gavaldik. What a beautiful, beautiful treat. Everyone, you should be blessed with lots of bracha, parnasa tov, and siyata d'shmaya. Thank you for joining us again.